Hi, I'm Clever Ghoul, but you can call me Nikki. Welcome back to the channel. I just got back from a road trip. I'm so tired, but I wanted to make something quick yet very spooky this week. So we're gonna make a stack of skulls that you can use for decor, and you can add candles to these or leave it as is. Plastic skulls are also super artificial looking. They're just way too bright. So I'm gonna take you through the process of how to age them as well. I did this last year in my video for a catacomb vase, which I will link below, and I would recommend checking out for more tips and tricks. But this project can be done in one day. It's really easy. The longest part is just waiting for paint to dry. So with that being said, let's get into it. For materials, you'll need the following: a bunch of skulls. I tried to get mine at the dollar store, but they were out, so I ordered them online. An xacto knife, a Sharpie, zip ties, hot glue, spray paint. I used Krylon hammered black to prime, and then Krylon chalk finish in colonial ivory to make the base. A variety of acrylic paint. I used browns and deep gray, and a sponge brush. Additionally, if you're going to add candles, scrap cardboard, and LED candles. I have my affiliate links in the description, and if you use them, I do earn a small commission, so thank you. First, we're going to assemble the base by zip tying some of the skulls together. I would line up 2 skulls, mark them with Sharpie where they touched, and then cut holes in those spots. I ended up having to widen the holes more than I thought in order to thread the zip tie through, but I'm glad I didn't start off with the holes being too big and visible. I wove 1 zip tie through both skulls, tightened it, and then trimmed off the excess length. I then repeated this process with a 3rd skull, cutting the holes into it, and then threading the zip tie through the zip tie on the first 2 skulls. Then I cut off the back of one of the skulls and hot glued it down to the base so it was on its side, making the base a little wider and also adding a little more visual interest than all of the skulls being upright. I held it down for a minute or 2 while it set, as it didn't really want to stay in place. That's when I noticed the hole on the bottom of that skull. To patch it, I cut out a chunk of the back of the skull that I had removed, added hot glue to it, and pushed it inside. Then I added more glue on top to sort of fill in the hole as best I could. From there, I began to add the second layer of skulls, placing one down, marking where it sat, and then hot gluing it down. I put the first one upright, and then again, to add more visual interest, I turned the second one on its side, this time hiding the hole on the base of the skull so I didn't have to patch it up again. For the 3rd skull on that layer, I cut off the back of the skull to place it, and I noticed it had gaps that were visible, so I cut chunks off the back of that skull and hot glued them inside. None of this has to be perfect, by the way. I'm going for an old, dirty, and possibly broken sort of vibe with this. I then added on the last skull and filled in any large gaps with the hot glue. Next, I pulled out my scrap cardboard and cut out what will essentially be perches for the LED candles to sit on. I played with length and placement and then glued them down on the skulls, adding hot glue around the edges of the cardboard as well to act as wax strips and disguise the perches slightly. You'll notice the color changes in my glue here. That's just because I was running out of glue sticks. Once the glue was set, I took the piece outside to prime with hammered black spray paint. I chose this so that there was some shadow and texture under the white that I'd add back in later. As soon as that was dry, I went in with a few layers of the chalk finish colonial ivory paint. I think this paint gives the skulls more of a realistic bone texture, which also helps when we age the skulls in the next step. After that was dry, it was time to age the skulls with acrylic paint. I mixed brown and deep gray together and added a bit of water to make my wash. This way I can build up the color slowly and with more control. I would apply the wash with my brush, let it sit for 20 to 30 seconds, and then dab it off with a paper towel. In some areas, I let the paint pool and I used a hairdryer to speed up the drying process between layers. I went all around the skulls doing multiple layers, and then I pulled out a honey brown paint and did a wash of that all over, adding varying amounts of it. This color adds some of that yellowy aging in, but I think it looks more realistic if it isn't too uniform. Once that was dry, I was all done, which means it's time for the reveal. Here it is. I'm really impressed with how quickly I turned this one out, and I think the skulls look so much better than they did at the start. I've seen other projects like this where they use spray foam to get in those gaps and to hold everything together, but I really wanted to see if I could do this with things I had on hand like hot glue and zip ties, and I'm really happy that it worked out. I think this would look cool even without the LED candles, but I can't help myself and I love to add lights onto something if I can. I still have some skulls left over and could make another smaller pile, or if you're doing this at home, why not try and make an even bigger pile than I did. I discovered that I really enjoy this sort of creepy catacomb vibe last year when I made a catacomb vase with mini skulls, and I would check that video out too for more inspiration. But you could also do this and make the skulls black to look charred, or go with bright white if you want a less realistic look. It's a very customizable project. How would you go about making this project? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!